to discuss the snowball and its lodge and future steps. So with that, maybe we can just go around the table for introductions to start. And Bob, you want to start?
Sure. Bob Gordon, Ragged Mountain Foundation.
Bob Falciani, Camden Select Board.
Taylor Benzie, Camden Select Board.
Audra Kaler-Bell, Town Manager of Camden.
Judy Sherman, Ragged Mountain Foundation.
Aaron Flanagan, Ragged Mountain Foundation.
Mark Ratner, Camden Select Board.
Holly Anderson, Camden Snowball. Beth Ward, Camden Snowball.
Bob, would you like to introduce the rest of the members?
Yeah, let's see. Board member Kenny Twaddell, we've got Peter Gross, who is on the building committee. We've got Caroline Morong and Bob Levine. And we've got a number of folks that couldn't make it today, but send their best.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Good attendance. Anyhow, why don't we start with why we're here? Do you want to lead into it, Bob?
Yeah, basically the foundation has been meeting and, we all took a break from the project, completed phase 1 and phase 2, I think successfully. A lot of great things have happened. For people who haven't been familiar with the project, hi, Allison. It was a combination of lifts, trail making, reshaping of the trails, lighting to the top, snow making to the top, but tremendous redevelopment as well as stormwater drainage, the parking lot, the wiring in the parking lot, and a host of other things. So that was phase 1 and 2. And after that, and the cost overruns, we took a break. And we've been meeting again and starting to say, is it time to start phase 3? So we wanted to get together with the select board and just have that conversation to see if its timing makes sense. We're not sure if it does or not, but more exploratory and make sure we're lined up and all of that. So that's where we are.
Great idea. Again, Bob, I don't know what part of these you want to lead and what part you don't, but the agenda suggests we get into goals and ground rules. I'm not exactly sure we want.
Yeah, we haven't been to a workshop before, but I'd love to hear the ground rules. We've got a few more board members and some empty seats. If we want to fill those with board members, that would probably be good.
We can absolutely do
Yeah,
that.
whatever. How's it work?
So, but workshop is a mechanism we use as a select board, in which there are 4 of us, now that Allison's here too. Jenna can't make it today, she's tied up. But
She's watching from home.
she's watching. Hi, Jenna. So the purpose is give the opportunity for the select board to do things we don't get to do during town meetings, because we have an agenda and we try to focus hard on the agenda to get the work done. But there's oftentimes a lot of homework, and there's a number of ways of accomplishing that. We do that through the establishment of committees and commissions to advise the select board. But the workshop is really a time for us to get together, because we're not allowed technically to be, 3 talking on the street about issues. That's not kosher. One of us, 2 of us can, but that's it. We have another, for example, workshop this week to discuss the select board's priorities and goals for this coming year and that kind of thing. So we
And the website.
and yes, absolutely. Thank you. That's actually this week on Friday, isn't it? Is that the-
It is,
On
yes.
Friday, we have another one at the same time, same station, which is discussing the town website, to have input from us, because it's a work session.
No votes.
No votes, no decisions, opinions maybe, but really to absorb.
Great.
Okay?
Yeah,
Make
perfect.
sense?
Yeah, totally
So
makes
we're
sense.
here to absorb stuff about the snowball and its lodge. I believe it's the principal, well, it's one of the, it doesn't have to be the only one, by the way,
Yeah.
with respect to the snowball. And we have our snowball executives here and town manager, so we're going to listen for the most part and ask questions.
Great. Sounds good.
All right, so that's kind of like the ground rules. I'll try to coordinate and not let everybody speak at once if I can help it. Doesn't always work, but we'll try. But we encourage participation, of course, because we are looking for input.
Sure. Great. Very good.
Are we going, maybe this is the wrong time to ask a question, but are we going to go around and introduce ourselves and
did.
have, oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want to introduce yourself?
It's just odd with the, I don't know why we didn't set up more tables, so
Well,
that
I
it's clear.
honestly didn't know. We can introduce the board members of Ragged Mountain, everybody at the table.
Is everybody here a board member?
No. We
no.
can, why don't you reintroduce the
Sorry.
board members, Val?
Yeah.
The clock was striking 11 as I walked in.
You're okay, you're okay.
I was on
You're
town
fine.
clock time.
So board members and members of the committee. So Kenny Twaddell, Peter Gross was the Building Committee Chair, Caroline Moran, Bob Levine, and then on the board, we've got Aaron Flanagan, and then Judy Sherman, and missing, there's Ed Zanka and Jonathan McDivitt, Lars Ellison, so a few other people as well.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
you're welcome.
All right. With that, let's talk about, I guess, the next item. We were talking about the review of Phase 1 and 2 completed, or obviously, history. Did you want to add more to that for work accomplished, or do you feel like you've already covered that one?
Yeah, I'd be curious. I mean, Beth is here and other people. I mean, my sense, our sense anyway, and probably why we're here is Phase 1 and 2 are complete. I think it's done exactly what we were hoping it was going to do, which is it's been profitable, I think, for the last 3 years. It's getting lots of great use and lots of rave reviews from everybody we talk to. And I think the need and the use for it is growing. I think the Round the Mountain Trail is going to continue the need and the demand for a new lodge, which is why we're here. But I think just overall that, the original vision, which was to create a four-season recreational area, was our goal originally. And there were lots of committee members at that time. Some of them are no longer even with us. Things have changed and a lot has happened over the years. But I think it's really important. And I think, for the foundation, which is primarily the fundraising group, right? Many of us were in, building committees and different committees, but the foundation, who's here today, our primary goal and mission is to raise capital funds for the Snow Bowl. So in addition to the capital campaign, we've also, over the years, given, over a couple $100,000 for annual requests that Beth and others have put forward. So, that's gone really well, and I think everybody knows, but maybe not, just going back, the Phase 1 and 2, like many projects, I look at the high school or the middle school now and all the different things cost more than people thought.
You think?
You think, right? And so we had some cost overruns for lots of different reasons. But, I think all the money, as stated by the audit, is on the mountain, and everything got built, and off we go. And so I think we're in a place, and I'd love to hear Beth, just where, I'm sure there's going to be ongoing maintenance and things that come up, but that it's doing what we hoped it would do. But what we don't have is the lodge. And, we were very successful in the fundraising. In fact, the overruns were probably close to 2 million when you actually look at it all. The last check we wrote was 743,000, and an earlier overrun because of water and just lots of things in a big complex project was about 1.2. So where we are now is stopping, and we took a break. We met all those goals, exceeded the fundraising goals at the time, and I think the foundation's ready to say, hey, are we ready to go again? And that's the question. And I think we've been looking at it and just saying, okay, seems like the time's right. And for a couple of reasons. One is it's working, it's doing what we said. And then also, it's been making money. So I think that was important, just to demonstrate that, if we did it, that it would actually cover its costs. And I think for most people watching or in the room, you have to look at the Snow Bowl over a longer period of time too. There will always be years where it doesn't make money. It's not intended to be a profit maker, but if you look at the 20-year, there's ups and downs, but flatline it, and it's basically a break-even operation. So I think what we want to do today is now talk about, are we still committed to the vision for a new lodge? We've got designs that were done. We're into the third design, by the way, just to bring people up to speed. So there was design 1, which was too expensive. Design 2, where the roof got changed, a bunch of things, and it got scaled back. And then version 3, which we have here, which was the final design, got approved, lots of talk about it. And it's a simplified version and cost-effective and affordable.
I just have to make one clarification for the public's perspective, which I always do, and that is it breaks even, or it has broken even, or even done better on an operational basis, excluding the Snow Bowl bond fund of $154,000 a year.
Sure.
Just to be clear.
Yeah,
So,
that's right. Yeah, and that was the plan, to have that bond.
understood,
Yeah.
understood.
Just to be clear.
But everybody's not familiar with accounting.
No, but I think it's important to know that that was always part of the plan.
Agreed,
Yeah.
agreed. Continue, please.
Yeah, so I think where we are is saying, are we still committed to that vision and the plan? We've heard there's some questions, there always are, about design and et cetera. Costs have obviously changed. I'm just going to go through the elements we'd love to talk about today. Because the costs were done basically 3-4 years ago. So, and we've gotten some recent updates, which would get updated again. One of the key learnings, I think, coming out of the past experience is to have, around construction, is to have a construction manager. We're all in agreement. There's no argument there. And then we want to talk about funding and fundraising, just sort of what needs to happen there. And then are there any critical issues that anybody has around whatever that is? Whatever somebody has.
Cool.
Yeah, so that's what we're thinking about.
Okay, cool. Would you want to talk too? Oh, did you have a hand? I thought I saw a hand in the corner of my eye here.
So, does everybody else here feel like they have a really good understanding of the most recent design? Just take Bob's here. Does everybody else have a really good understanding of where exactly what the design is, what the, how final or not final that is, how, I have a lot of questions, I guess, is what I'm.
Sure.
So it's not clear, when you say, oh, okay, this is the design that was approved and
At
all
the
of
time,
this.
at the time, yeah.
The one approved by vote, when the original bond went out to voters.
That's right. Yeah, this was when we went forward with the plan and execution, this was the design.
Remind me which, 2004?
14, it would have
14.
been
Yeah.
through the planning board.
Yeah.
And this is what's reflected on these boards.
Yes.
Right, correct. And Peter's here, so if Allison, if it's helpful, maybe Peter could give you a quick overview of the design and all of that. Or not.
So I'm just going to jump, I'm just
go
going
for
to
it.
say,
Yeah.
what others may be, hopefully actually are, way more informed than I am. This isn't an issue that I feel up to date on. But I do get a lot of questions from people about, where are you? Have they looked at this? Have they not looked at this? Is it still the same design? I know the Energy Committee had a lot of concerns. I think it was in a watershed school report. Some of it was just about the energy efficiency. Then there's another group of people that says, it never should have been this expensive of a lodge, that we should just do an addition on the A-frame, or sort of what's the totality of what's been
Sure.
considered? What is the budget that's being looked at right now?
Sure. I'm looking at Peter over there. Peter, do you want to talk about the design, or, I can, but if,
Sure, I'll be glad to. Just to back up,
yeah.
maybe to address your question, sorry, wait, up here.
Just take a microphone. You can stand if you want, whatever you want to do.
It's just been a while since we've all talked about this,
Yeah,
so
that's why we're
I,
here. That's why we're here.
To address your question about the A-frame, the A-frame is woefully antiquated, and just to put money into trying to expand that building or renovate and so forth was, very early on in the process, was determined to be inappropriate. Just was
Okay.
not an appropriate way to spend money on the mountain. In terms of creating a new community building, and I'm going to
Yeah, that makes
point out
sense, I
that this
think,
is a
too.
community building, not necessarily a lodge. Because this building is designed to not only be used during the winter, but also in the summertime.
right, and I think that's part of the reason why a lot of people felt frustrated that when costs went over, it was, all of the skiers who, immediately got all their trails, but some of the people in the community that had just been looking forward to the expanded lodge and being able to sit somewhere without getting ketchup on their sleeve while they watched their, grandchildren or something, they kind of feel like, hey, all the skiers are enjoying.
I think that's why we're here today.
Yeah. So is the A-frame going to stay up and be repurposed, or is that planned to be torn down?
Because in order to save money, in terms of building the new building, certain uses or needs for the facilities were removed from the original design. It was a much bigger building and just
Yeah.
way out of whack in terms of costs and the whole thing. So there will be, as I understand, the A-frame will remain in place, but not be used by the public. It's more for ski patrol, equipment storage, and things like that, remember correctly?
It's ski patrol, it's ski club, and
Race.
retail. So the retail, so side country sports potentially would move in there. And then the rental shop would be in the bottom level, at the parking lot level as you come into the new building, so.
And the building is, as I said, designed for 4 seasons. Sarah's room and the main floor is planned to be air-conditioned so that it can be used in the summertime. It has expansive deck design on the mountainside and on the pond side for outside uses, for weddings, receptions, things like that, so that it'd be a much nicer facility for those kinds of functions. So it's really designed, as I said, for not just as a lodge, but for the community to be used year-round. It is designed, it is a small building. When we come right down to it, it's not a huge building. And it's been designed very efficiently to utilize the amount of space that we could afford to build and create the spaces that are needed. Sarah's room for functional use during ski season, as well as out the rest of the year. The scramble, the cooking area and so forth is pretty compact, but it provides the space needed based on designs from experts in that area. Restrooms.
What's the square footage of sort of the main area that,
Right off the head.
The
My
first
head's not in.
Yeah, it's
between you.
9,500 square feet total, something like that. So you're 4,500, 5,000 square feet.
For Sarah's room.
No, on the upper
On that
floor. Upper floor.
9,500 over 2 floors.
Yeah, yeah. And then you've got storage, there's storage in the back that's not included in that figure, but.
Right.
so for the average person that just goes in and sits in that sort of, big common eating area, how many square feet is that right now? Like currently
Yeah,
on the
Here's
eighth-
another way to think of it. Currently, it probably seats comfortably 80.
Right now.
Currently.
Currently, 100 inside.
100 is what it says. And in the new configuration, if you hold up the seating plan, Peter, it'll seat 250 people in the new plan. So
That's
it's
45.
over twice, it's
That's
two and a
40
half
That's
times.
4,500 square feet. That, not the, excluding deck,
Yeah, I think it's even more, excluding, yeah, it may even be more.
compared to what we have, maybe. What do we have today in the snowball at the lodge? Square
Inside,
feet?
25, 2,500.
Both floors. Yeah, both floors. That's the main lodge is
So
not
we're-
2,500 per floor.
Just that, so the great space will be a little bit over twice as much as our current great space.
And 100% usable. The A-frame, let's face it.
Oh, right, yeah.
Along the walls is not usable unless you like to bang your head against the steel beams, which I don't, being a little on the tall side. So it's
Cubbies, yeah.
100% usable, much nicer space in that it really has a lot more glass facing the mountain, both for during the summer, but skiing as well as in the summertime, and windows facing towards the pond and so forth. So it's going to be a very pleasant space to be in with the focal fireplace in here. The scramble is back in this area here, and then offices and restrooms and things like that here.
Peter, can you talk into the mic?
Yeah, don't
I'm sorry.
Pointer.
That makes a great point. So on the lower level is the ski rental shop, which
Scramble, that's an actual word for something?
it refers to the kitchen,
Like a cafeteria, so,
Okay.
yeah.
I didn't know that word.
on the lower level, I'll try not to gesture with this. The back of the building is storage. Sorry, thanks. So the back of the building is storage area. This area over here on the side is the rental ski equipment rental space, which could be used in the summertime for other purposes, with access directly from the parking lot. The main entrance is here facing the parking lot with stairs going up and an elevator. And then this area over in here is mechanical, electrical, and offices for Parks and Rec and for managing the snowball.
Beth,
Where are the lockers?
Lockers will be going into the A-frame lodge. One half of it would be locker room, and the other half is the retail space.
Right.
The ski lockers.
And ski lockers, and then upstairs, there's tons of cubbies, like, that got a lot of
All around.
research, so they're all around. If you look over in this area, going into Sarah's room, all around the sides.
These are cubbies.
And then what happens with round tables as well is a lot of people, if you've been to Saddleback and other mountains, they'll, put their stuff underneath or in the middle. But compared to what you have now, it's probably 4 or 5 times as much.
How much more locker space do we expect?
I don't
Right off. There
It's
is.
been a while.
There is some space in this area in here for lockers, but unfortunately, in order to keep costs down, that the purchase of those lockers, I believe, was eliminated from the budget to get it built, but they could always be put in the
They're
future.
about to tear down our whole school with, what are they doing with all those lockers?
I don't know that those would hold ski equipment, maybe purses and valuables, but.
Snowboards, maybe.
The other thing I want to point out is this space above the entrance is a meeting room, multifunction room, could be used potentially for childcare during various events.
Birthday parties.
Birthday parties, dressing area for brides or whatever, potentially. So it's a additional sort of functional space that has a great view actually towards Bald and towards the Hosmer Pond.
Beth, I'm curious what kind of big day-to-day changes you might see operationally after we make a change like this.
Certainly, custodial, we will, because we'll have 2 buildings to take care of.
You know, why don't we dive into that part? Unless there are any more questions on design
Well, can we
elements. You have more
budget?
questions?
Overall
That's
budget,
where I
what's-
was going. I was
Oh,
going to go to
okay.
the next, really the core of, let's just discuss the plan going forward with, if there are more questions on design, I'm not trying to cut that off.
I have a couple questions. Two things. The Energy Committee, when they reviewed this a number of years ago, had, as a member, an architect that specialized in energy efficiency. And she had questions about the efficiency of the design, and also that there was no solar, at the Snowball area. Seems like a good place, a lodge to be built to take advantage of solar. And knowing that and taking into account that since all this has happened, we've signed under the Global Covenant of Mayors, which is about reducing our use of fuels and energy and being more efficient. Has there been any thought of looking at the efficiency of the building that was designed, 5, 6 years ago, and towards what's going on currently with efficiency?
Yeah, well, let me talk about this building and how it was designed, because we looked at being LEED certified and platinum and all the different levels. And the architect, Blatt and Associates, basically recommended that we go New England Green, which is do everything you need to do to be LEED certified without going through all the paperwork and the costs, because LEED costs an additional $200,000 or $300,000 to get certified. So it's triple glazed windows, I believe. It's heavily insulated. The ceiling's been reduced. So Revision Energy, Bill was on the committee, the building committee, and Revision's one of the top leaders around, energy and solar and wind and all those things. So we looked at all of that. In fact, wind powers probably make the most sense actually for the Snow Bowl. And we know how controversial that is, but, I think putting a tower, a blade up on top of the mountain would make a lot of sense. As far as the building and the roof, you could actually put solar panels onto the old lodge. I think the aspect is proper. The other thing that we've talked about, because we've redesigned the roof so many times, and we've heard this, hey, what about solar on the roof? Solar doesn't need to go on a roof. Solar could go in a field, it could go down by the pond, it could go over on top of the lift building. There's a lot of places to do that. So where we are in where we got to through all of this, and architects and Revision Energy and everybody, was let's design the most, and it's all about I think most people know the thing with a building, and this building is all about the shell and making sure that it's tight. So air exchangers and all of that really creates the efficiency. So we had, I think, really good people involved looking at it, I think at the time, and I think it would probably still hold water as it's a really well-designed building. And I think as far as alternative energy, I'd say look at wind, absolutely. I think let's not rule out solar. I wouldn't change the roof, my recommendation, but that doesn't mean you can't put panels, put a farm out in the field or something like that.
We've had somebody look at that extensively, and just so far haven't been able to get anybody to say that there's a ground-mounted solar option that works well for the Snow Bowl. But, I would just say that, I think that even if my general sense from the community, which is only a demographic, but is that even if this is the perfect design, and, you know, the very best thought process was used to arrive at it, that the appetite at this point for, there's going to be significant appetite for rehashing it. And sort of going back and looking again because of the number of people that either weren't involved in the process to begin with or have forgotten, or that it may be that to get the community support that is needed, if, depending on how much is needed, that we may need to just go through it again where all ideas are on the table. And
We're here, that's why we're here. We're here to talk.
Peter?
I just want to point out, when we're talking about the roof, it has a fairly gentle slope. It's designed to hold the snow, not dump it on people's heads. Pitched roofs, I mean, I've been an architect for umpteen decades here at this point, and I do my best to design buildings so I don't need gutters and that don't dump snow on people's heads. And a roof like this one serves that purpose. There's no water running off onto people's heads. There's no snow sliding off, and actually holds what snow it can as added insulation during the wintertime. So that's part of the, not the main reason, that's part of the reason that the roof is designed the way it is, and rather than a pitched roof.
We can discuss.
yeah, I wasn't even.
No, I just wanted to put that out there so that.
Thank you, Peter. I think, but we want to get into the substance of the discussion next, which would be, what is the current projection or funding, cost, and those elements of the agenda?
Yeah.
Let's talk to those.
I think it's really too early to say, Bob, from the standpoint of, originally, it started out at 2.2, right?
In 14?
Yeah, even before 14.
Okay.
Then it went to, when we started the project, it was 2.2. It got revised to 2.6.
Right.
And then I think it was up to 2.9. Yeah, I see, this is the face, those are
Well,
good
no,
faces.
escalation is probably,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
2.9 was
I know.
estimated when?
2.9 was 2016.
3
but-
years.
Yep, by Ledgewood.
Does,
Yeah.
does that include repurposing the A-frame, or is that just the construction of this building?
No, and there's maybe slightly different views. My vision on the A-frame would be if we turned that over to the ski club and to Side Country, that they would own the operating costs on that. I don't see why the town would take that on, quite frankly. I think that, why wouldn't Side Country, they would get a building, that the ski club, and certainly the ski patrol part of it, which would be the town, but there would be some kind of cost sharing around that. Would make sense.
So at the moment, you don't have a current
We don't.
budget you're standing behind this moment.
No, and that's what we're gonna go out. If there's energy, to be frank, if we're not zoomed in on the design, why spend a lot of time, energy, and effort?
Good point.
We're not here to waste our time or your time.
Right.
And I think to your point, Allison, we're never gonna make everybody happy. There's never a perfect design, and we've gone through 3, and none of them made anybody perfectly happy. So, we can look at another design, we can do all of that, but, I
It
think
also costs more money.
it costs more money and all of that.
Two other quick questions. Obviously, the trailer where the rental is now will go away.
Yeah, all the trailers.
Would the other trailer where, on the other side where the rental or where the shop used to be, would those go away too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, good. So that would take away all of
Yeah.
that.
They're supposed to be temporary, but they've been there for how long now?
Yes.
Or maybe some other business would want to go in there, or does it really make sense to, is it just because they're an eyesore, or is it?
Eyesore, I would
I
say,
mean, they
big eyesore.
certainly
Yeah,
serve
yeah,
a,
maybe, or middle
maybe
building,
like
but, so
food
at
truck.
a 3 million-ish, it's probably not going to go down from there, given the current market. Yeah, well, obviously.
Who knows? I mean, we got some preliminary numbers. It could be as high as 3.6, 3.8.
What it is, it is.
Yeah, and costs are climbing. The other thing to note with the design is that all of the architectural costs, they're completed. We have the final drawings, so there's about $300,000 in sunk cost in this
You
design.
have construction docs?
Yes.
wow.
What, in the estimation, just to finish this, the cost part, what was estimated for maintenance costs for this building?
I think early on, and Beth, you jump in, but it wasn't to add a lot of people. It's a brand-new
Yeah, I'm
building.
not talking about people, I'm talking about maintenance costs.
Yes, so.
What is the physical maintenance cost for a building of this size?
I I
Good
don't
question.
remember. I'll have to look back.
At least.
You mean depreciation, or?
No, the town doesn't deal with depreciation because we don't do profit, we don't pay taxes. No, but there's a cost to maintain systems, buildings, maintenance in general, and the cost, runs in the order. It depends on the building, really. It depends it can anywhere be from initial cost of 5 to 10% initial cost of the building. But that's, that's got to be taken into consideration by the town, because that's not a hidden cost. That's a real cost.
And then you got to ask, what's the increased revenue from the rental, the weddings, the
Oh, I
events?
thought you were going to guarantee that.
Yeah, we don't operate it, Bob. Yeah, let's be clear. Nice try. Nice try.
Would you be interested in?
No.
I had to get that in, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
But I think, let's be honest about it. I mean, I think the vision and the plan, and it's making money now, and is that you will increase weddings and events and all of those types of things. So there should be additional revenue.
But I hear that all the time. And if that were true, then Point Lookout would have sold. But that's another debate for another day.
I was going to say, I have, this year again, unfortunately, we have been fortunate. I know 2 years ago, the March snow really saved the year for us. And last year, we had a large March snowfall as well. And I'm always concerned about the yearly budget for the snowball, because we will have, one of these years, we're going to have a year without that life-saving snow in March. And this year, the latest weather forecasts have projected that this will again be a warmer year for New England, and a lot of the, only the upper Midwest looks to be colder than normal. So I continue to be concerned about, I tend to watch the snowball budget weekly to keep track of it, to make sure that we try to minimize the loss to the town. And, knowing that the roof, I'd heard that the roof was built the way it was to maintain snow, so for insulation, which is a great idea. But if we're moving towards a situation where we're going to have less snow, is this, I guess the question that people want to know, is this the building that we need for a less active ski area? And how well does it work for a Four Season as we try to transition to that, when we have not yet come up with a very viable financial plan for, seasons other than snow at this point?
Right. Yeah, I think, and I think this always brings you back to the development of a mini financial model, as it were. That would include, I haven't yet heard of anyone discuss, whatever the number is, it's probably going to be 3 to 4 million easily, without question, for this kind of a design. And there are sustainable questions still on the table. There's still those questions. And yes, it is, the town does have a bit of a conundrum, we all do as residents, and that is, with the warming of the planet and those issues, does the Seacoast community expect future increases in snow or decreases? We can't be speaking on one side of our mouth about, that we need to worry about the sea rising and the temperature changing, and we're doing a great job, Beth, in making snow up there, by the way. We may have to do more in the future, which is more, that's a second debate. The third one is, the financial model I was referring to is, what is proposed for this funding and fundraising? Is the town anticipated putting in money into this lodge, or is that open for discussion?
I think it's all open for discussion, Bob. Yeah.
Perfect.
I mean,
So
we don't have the answers. I mean,
And that's a
Too
great
early.
answer. I would appreciate your honesty there, and I think that's part of the model. But I think, to the, because, as I know the town in and of itself has got, I think in our capital planning right now, backlog is, what is it, Audra, $29 million of backlog we currently have, with things that shoulda, coulda, woulda, and we're. That doesn't, thank you. I thought it did.
Yeah.
Thanks. But, so the beautiful
Can
design.
you give me an example, a quick example of a couple of those things? 29 without roads,
So that would be
dams,
everything.
seawalls.
Yep.
Walls,
The library,
parks,
green
the
roof,
harbor.
That's not even in there.
not mobile.
Microphone?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
And how does that compare historically as
harbor,
percentage of budget?
Well-
for the town? Is that typical, 20, 25
For a town of
million?
this size, it's probably a little high,
Yeah.
in my opinion. That's just my opinion. But it cycles.
Yeah.
And not everything has to be done, obviously, tomorrow, otherwise we'd be in trouble. And the town, we've tried hard to maintain a reasonable escalation of the portion of the taxes that we control, which is not the majority, but it is a significant piece. So on that list are many, many, many projects that we need to consider, and some that are not on that list, and not the least of which is some of the library has come to us with some issues that we need to pay attention to. Some of the other repair issues, the issues in regard to the potentials for climatological changes that may impact the town and its physical facilities. I only mention this because that's the backdrop of our thinking. That's all. Not yay or nay. It's just the backdrop of our thinking. So from that perspective, do we absolutely look at the least possible cost benefit? Absolutely have to. Is this the minimal cost benefit? I don't know the answer to that question either. It looks like a wonderful design, by the way. I would be a little more questions on sustainability. I understand the lead thing, but it does cost 10 to 15% more depending on your level. But the sustainability materials, those kind of things we can discuss in detail as if the project should move forward. But I think the financial conundrum is big. If you're trying to raise $3.5 to $4 million, that's a chunk of change against the competitive market that's out there right now for library raising money, school raising money, the list goes on and on. I get letters, you and I get letters every week.
No, but I think what we have to be careful is we don't, get caught up in how we're going to fund this until we get aligned on the vision. And that would be my thing, because there's lots of ways to fund this. There's grants, there's a whole host of things. But I think let's start in the hierarchy of things. Why don't we get aligned on the vision, get aligned on a plan, and then you'll do a feasibility study and see if you can raise the funds. But I think you have to be careful you don't get premature.
Yeah, you're right.
And try to get to point C.
You're right.
Until,
You're right.
hey, are we aligned on the vision to have a four-season resort? Anybody not aligned on that? Right, I'm not pointing a vote, I'm just giving an example, right?
That's a rhetorical question.
Rhetorical question. So you do that, okay, and then you say, okay, if that's the vision, great. If it's got to be sustainable, that means it pays for itself somehow. Great, are we all aligned on that? Yeah, okay, just rhetorical. And then, do we like the designs? But start going down through it. But I think you have to start at the top and work down. It's really easy to go down to the bottom. We don't even know what the building's going to cost yet. And there are so many ways to raise money.
Right.
And it's always competitive. When we raised this, the feasibility study said that we could raise 4 million. We raised close to 8. So, you're looking at a group that is, you're not going to say we're afraid of that. And fundraising is about a viable project. The voters, the town in a 5-to-1 vote approved the project. So, people are excited about it. And that's not about a vote. That's about enthusiasm for the snowball.
Sure.
And I think when you get to climate change, who knows? I mean, I've read studies that say in New England it's going to get more snow. That climate change doesn't mean every place gets warm at the same level, and it varies.
Sure.
So you got to look at the science around climate change. And then you look at snowmaking and you say, you don't need rain and when it's going to snow, as long as it's cold. With the system we have, we can make snow.
Sure.
So it's very complicated is my point, and it's easy to pick at little strings and find a little thing to tug on, but I think let's lift up, let's look big, and let's see if we can get aligned. Are we still aligned on the vision and the plan? But let's talk about these other things so we get people knowledgeable.
Mark?
I agree on that. I want to go back to one of the things Bob said and just confirm what he said, that this board, I think, has been especially good at looking long-term at infrastructure and things we need to do. I think in other localities, other places, I think some people have their head buried in the sand about what costs they're going to have realistically. And I think we've been really good at looking forward to say, this is realistic, this is what we're going to need to do so that we're not hit with big surprises. And that's what we're trying to do. I voted for this project. My son skis has been skiing since he was 4. He's 13 now. He loves the snowball. If I had a rich relative and that would pass away and leave me lots of money, I would build it tomorrow if I had the money to donate. Unfortunately, I have no rich relatives.
Friends? You got any friends?
I have no rich relatives. So it's tough. I mean, I really like the design. I like that it's been scaled back to be more realistic. But we have to look long-term. And the biggest problem, especially with the school costs, there have been a number of complaints recently we've had about people looking at their latest tax bills, which has been really difficult. So, If there's a way to get to it, I would love it. Is there a way to get to it with the town contributing big pieces of money? I'm very skeptical of that. But I would love to see it if we can find a way to get there.
Yeah, Allison, oh, I'm sorry, Taylor asked, you
No,
punched me first.
Taylor should definitely go first.
Yeah, I think to Bob's point about lifting up and kind of looking at the big picture, and I think taking it slowly, which is probably, I think this meeting is a smart way to open this discussion up. From that view, I don't think there's any question that having something like this in general would be a huge benefit to the town for a lot of reasons. At the same time, it raises as many questions about responsibility as it does the benefit it serves. Bob mentioned the library earlier. That's a beautiful example of, how private public funding came together many years ago to build that space for us. And now we're in a place where there's a lot of operational costs that are coming in that are a burden for the town. So how do you plan for that ahead of time as best you can to make sure that, we're thinking 20 years ahead? Obviously, there's a big philosophical question about how climate change is going to affect all of us. I don't think we're going to answer that in this project, but it's worth having a discussion. So just from my perspective, I think there's no question this is a good conversation to have, and if there's a way to find a path forward, then we should absolutely do it. I do agree with Mark. I think that certainly from a capital improvement standpoint, I'm not concerned about the money coming from the town. I just don't think it's viable if the money's coming from the public sources, and we've got to minimize the operational increase as best we can. I just think that's the most realistic conversation to have. So, but I'm very supportive.
Thank you. Allison, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I mean, want to echo, I'm also very supportive of the Snow Bowl, and we spend lots of time there, and none of my hesitancy is related to lack of support for the Snow Bowl. Sometimes it feels like we're on trial, like, do you support the schools? Do you support the library? Do you support the Snow Bowl? But I wonder, it feels like this may take a while to get to. And every time when I'm there, it does feel urgent. Just the number of people that are there, which, I mean, it's great. There's no doubt that lots of people, and more now than ever, even just with the chairlift rides, more people than ever are coming, it seems, to the Snow Bowl. And you can't even wash your hands in that place. There's not even, I mean, it feels like a very cramped, semi-dangerous even, like cesspool in there sometimes. I mean, I love it.
Well, there's a sales pitch.
I love it. But I mean, that's how much people love the Snow Bowl, that they will subject themselves to that. It's really just looking at the lines and I'm not a huge skier. I sure wish I could just sit there and do some work sometimes and just watch my kids and talk with them when they come in. But, sometimes when we're sitting there, we say, my husband and I, he's a lifelong skier, lifelong Camden resident, and it's like, if we could all we really need is just some more seating. Is there any kind of an interim stopgap measure that, okay, rather than waiting till we can accomplish the perfect solution, could we do some kind of just expanded seating area and allow one more small vendor? And if you look at the history of the Snow Bowl, which I'm sure you all know well, I love reading about 1929 and 30 and that the era of the 30s, and I think it was like 37 when they finally unveiled it. And what they did, it was like a Habitat for Humanity kind of house building situation. And every Camden, resident that was interested, and people from Rockport too, went out on Sundays for like 21 Sundays in a row, and they got a bunch of donated materials, and they just built something. And it was this beautiful story of the community working together and volunteer labor, and that would be my dream, is that we could do something like that again. And I don't think we do Habitat for Humanity projects all the time where people get out there and build things. So I think it would be nice if we could try to brainstorm some sort of a temporary or evolutionary fix that would solve some of the immediate space needs, even if we aren't ready for the, $4 million things. That's just a
Yeah,
comment.
good comments. I think from,
No, there's no, that was somewhat rhetorical, just, you don't have to respond and
No,
tell
I'm
me
not
about
res-
liability right now.
I'm not responding to you at all. I was trying to craft my response,
Oh.
and I'm real slow today, because this is my third meeting. But from a view from 30,000 feet, that's why, one of the reasons why I asked about the maintenance cost, whatever it might be. I have an idea what that should be based on my background, but the snowball right now runs the ragged edge of breaking even every year. Like this year, for example, we did pretty well. We did 40 or 60,000 to the black on the budget.
First year we hit $1 million in revenue.
Yep, but we hit 40 or 60,000,
Is
but,
that with the insurance factored in, and isn't the town still?
Yeah, everything's,
yeah, well,
than-
I'm not going to
And the
start that.
pump and the-
I'm not going to start all that debate, but I think there's some, in general, yes. Yeah, but, but my point was, most of that money that we had was put aside for repairs of certain equipment up there, so it kind of ate that up. We walk the bleeding edge of being in the black. If I start adding this kind of maintenance cost to it, we have to, as Mark said, monitor the budget of this thing weekly with Beth, and it's tough, so tough on her and her staff to monitor whether or not we're going to be able to stay open, not stay open, shut down, not hope that March is going to be snowy. It's awfully close. So this one kicks it over in my mind. Two, yeah, I kind of feel that if I had to put a probability on this thing being a little pricey for the town at this point in its current concept, I'd have to say it's pretty high. I think the potential for this being a little more than we can afford kind of thing is probably pretty high. Probability less.
What are you talking about, Bob, as far, when you say afford, operating costs or?
Yeah,
or
it's
costs?
operating costs and, well, assuming if this was all fundraised, great, wonderful, I love the idea. And bonds is not one of those fundraising, that comes from the town. But yeah, I think if somebody's going to come in with the angel comes in with, $5 million, yeah, that's great. But I'd have to watch the operating costs thing. Because I'm concerned. I'm concerned with what we have to do year to year and in year out. It doesn't take but literally a sneeze to go into the red side of the budget. Yeah, I have to admit I'm a little bit jaundiced because we talk about, being a sustainable town. We want to be, energy conscious. We want to be, environmentally correct. I'm not sure reinforcing ski areas is the way to do that, because the power demand has nothing to do with your lodge, by the way, or limited. There's ways of doing some sustainable energy with this building, I'm sure. It's just going to add more cost to it.
Sure.
You can do that. But I think at the $3.5 to $4 million amount, that's, if you can raise that, fine. In my opinion, given where we are with the town's backlog of demands and its capital planning, we don't have the bandwidth to include any of it in our budgeting, so it would have to be 100% fundraised, period. That's just my perspective. I'm only one person.
Yeah, I think, once again, I think it's too early to.
Exactly.
To go there.
Exactly.
Even to say we're not going to do a bond or not, because I think at some level, we don't know, and I think, let's see where we get to and go with the goal of let's raising it. But I just want to say a few things. One is that I think that, and it's great to hear that you're putting the money back. It's still an enterprise fund, is that correct?
No.
Meaning an enterprise
No,
fund?
it's not.
Special revenue.
Special revenue.
Okay, is that the same as an enterprise fund? So the profits go into a pool for fixing it or maintaining it?
What profits?
We argue about
When you
what
have a
this thing is called
surplus.
all the time.
It's a special projects fund, which means it has a budget and an operating budget, income, outcome. What the profit of it is, yes, was used for
Yeah,
maintenance.
surplus.
It was used for maintenance this year.
Yeah, and historically, going back to the beginning, past 30, 40 years, my understanding anyway, and maybe it's changed with the new regime, is that it was an enterprise fund. That
Understood.
these are all new players,
Understood.
right? I'm just saying it.
Our auditor came in last year, we had a big, correct me if I'm
Yeah.
wrong, had a big discussion about the enterprise fund and whether that was the smart way to be doing this.
Right.
And how depreciation affects that.
Sure.
They strongly recommended that we get out of the enterprise fund and move it into a special revenue
Okay.
fund.
But with the same purpose. It
Yeah,
was
that's
more
right,
just a.
yeah, so the money-
you know,
I
For
just
example-
want to make sure the public and we, the board, understand that Our understanding has
Yeah.
been
Yeah.
that any surpluses from the snowball operation
Go back in the
went
snowball.
back into the
Yeah.
They
snowball.
don't go into the general fund.
That's all I'm asking.
You're correct.
That's what I'm
You're
asking.
correct.
I want to be clear there.
You're correct.
It's also really not true that a lot of, I do think that it's been unfair to the public to, and it makes the public also really concerned and defensive when they hear over and over, oh, it's profitable. The snowball's a profitable thing. It really just breaks even, because for years, there have been a lot of hidden costs in the town budget. So that aren't properly, and I think people support the snowball. It's not, it doesn't need to be sold as a profitable thing. We should just try to be as honest as
We're in violent
possible.
agreement. Let me give a little history of our sense, because we've been around this for a long time, as you have, but nobody ever thought of the snowball as being profitable. And you have to remember, it is Parks and Rec. This is, Belfast has a swimming pool. Does that swimming pool make money? No, and it costs the town up there about $80,000 a year to run it. There are all kinds of things that people do for recreation. If these kids weren't out at the Snow Bowl, the 400 or 500 that are out there on a given weekend, where would they be? The Parks and Recreation, the same way the library doesn't make money, right? It's not a revenue generator. The Snow Bowl actually does have a revenue side to it, which is why it had an enterprise fund. So it's unusual. It's a bit of a hybrid, right? You know, you can say, its purpose is not to make money. Its purpose is to provide winter recreation and year-round recreation. That's the vision for the place. And if it breaks even, oh my God, every town in America would love one of those. If they had a park that provided 65,000 user days, that's the number, Bob, to use that facility for skiing, skating, running, doing all those things. If you want to get into some of these numbers, we know them because we've looked at them. And I can tell you, the value that the town and the Mid-Coast Maine area gets for almost a break even is amazing.
Sure.
Amazing.
Sure.
And the other thing is, you know, just to say a few things to educate folks that haven't been involved so long, that, you know, when you lose one of these things, you know, they lost Saddleback, it's
Right.
closed.
Right.
You know, and that's been a huge economic, you know, impact to that town. The Snow Bowl provides over close to $4.5–5 million worth of revenue. And so it's not a luxury. It's a viable part of this community and the economic part of this town. Creates jobs for, you know, all the seasonal employees and on and on and on. So you really have to look at this holistically. This is not about having a toy. I think you used that word one time. This is something that's extremely
I
viable.
like toys.
Yeah, I know, but this is not a toy. This is really the heart and soul of this town from the standpoint of recreation, providing things for the community, providing jobs, and really good jobs. And there's schooner captains and, you know, people, all kinds of people out there that work close to how many jobs? 90 jobs.
Well,
not.
I mean, let's just
Part-time,
try to be
they're not
honest
full-time.
about it's semi-slave labor out there for this, some of the, I mean.
Wow,
we're
sewers,
not-
slave
not-
labor,
The seasonal
man.
workers, if you teach lessons at the Snow Bowl, you mostly do it because you love it. It is not
Sure.
it is not a viable means of providing for a family.
I didn't say
teach
it
lessons.
was.
So,
I
I mean,
didn't say
it's
it was.
just
But let's be
90
careful
jobs
about
is-
extremist words like sewer,
Okay.
septic, and slave labor. I mean,
Consider the people that patch together 4 seasonal jobs. That could add up to a full-time
it
job
makes
for
a
some people.
difference. And it's fun work, you know, that's the other thing.
They
So
enjoy
anyway, I
it. They
think-
enjoy it.
Yeah, let's sort
This-
of,
yeah,
I love the colorful language, but let's sort of have some, you know. These
It's
are
a minimum wage
for the
job.
people, but they,
Yeah,
I don't know if it's
people love
minimum,
it.
I don't even know what it is, to be
Yeah,
honest.
we can certainly look at all the economics.
Yeah, yeah, all the economics.
All I'm trying to underscore is that if this is funded by other sources, then that's one issue. If it's intended to be funded by bond or not, because the reason I mentioned bonds is, yes, that still is what the taxpayer has to pay. And that is my concern.
Sure, I get that.
The taxpayers are facing, we're trying to, well, why don't we approve?
What you're saying, Bob, is that if no bond is required, that you're all for it?
I'm saying, hey, you know, if somebody wants to build something here and maintain it and it doesn't cost the town a penny, why wouldn't they do it?
Okay. Yeah.
Key words.
Key words.
Town doesn't cost anything to the town. Because we have a closer view of the holistic picture of what this town needs. Not just the capital improvement things, it's a long list. Now, we could certainly debate whether or not something's more important than paving some roads or something's more important than repairing infrastructure that we have that's old. We can debate that, but the list is long, and we have that information. So it's not that I'm not anti-lodge, I'm not anti-snowball, or I don't call it a toy because I think it's a fun thing. I ski up there. It's wonderful. You have to have toys in life. That's not negative. It's positive. This town loves the snowball. I get that.
Yeah.
I mean, if I were to make it a business decision on the snowball on business only, then close it. We're not doing that. We're not going to go there. But so, yeah, it has to be, to me, that it's a pretty big nut at $3.5 to $4 million. I'm hoping it's in that range, not anymore. It should be. But that's a big nut. But my jaundice is from what I know the town is facing for capital improvements and blah, 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 and operating costs going forward.
Sure.
I get a lot of feedback from people about taxes they can't afford to pay. And I don't want to, my concern is that we're going to squeeze the lower end out of this town and just have this other end, and you know what? It doesn't work economically.
Yeah, and we're not trying to raise taxes. That's not our goal at all, and we understand that. And I think that, and the snowball, there's lots of programs. It's for everybody,
Sure.
Everybody.
Sure.
It's not meant to be,
Sure.
for just a certain person. I mean, people go out and skate, and there's all kinds of events in the toboggan and on and on and on.
Sure.
But I think that the other thing, though, that we should all remember, because we're looking at the numbers, Peter showed me some numbers today, and, we just got a quick thing from Ledgewood, but every year we wait, the costs are not going down. And so, when we come at it, and, with the cost overruns before, which the town owned, that, we had overraised the money, and now we're coming back at this. And every year that goes by, the costs are going up 20-30%, Bob, and you're a builder and you know this. So 2 years from now, guess what it's going to be? It's going to be $5 million, and then it's going to be 6 and 7 and 8. So the question is, when do you want to do it? That's the thing.
Well, if it's going to go up 20% or maybe never. No. By the way, I would slightly disagree with that because I believe the construction bubble will end within 2 to 3 years.
It may, but
that's a debate we can have over coffee.
Yeah.
But, by the way, I think the snowball gives the town of Camden a unique personality. It doesn't, what towns on coastal Maine can brag about what we have here? The mountains meet the sea, right? I get all that. I think it's absolutely wonderful. And one of my reasons for moving here was that. But the fiduciary responsibility is where I come from, and I'm somewhat concerned about maintaining the objectives about what we can do in taxes, and that's why I only bristle a little bit when I hear bond and say maybe a bond now.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I just want to be clear. We haven't brought up that word at all. You have brought the word up.
No, you brought it up twice today.
After you said it, I've responded to you. I said we wouldn't necessarily rule it out, but the concern is coming from you. Hey, I think that this has to be a partnership, and it has been from the town from the beginning.
Yep.
And how we do that, it could be writing grants. So, there are other things that can be done,
Sure.
and I've talked to Audra
Sure.
about that, which
Sure.
is, we've gotten grants before, and that may be the way that the town pitches in.
Possible.
So we're not ruling out any kind of funding in this thing, but I think to start from that, we're not doing whatever, we're not saying that. But as far as, hey, how do we do this? Let's agree on the upper level things. Let's not focus on, we're absolutely not going to do this. But I think if a grant could be written that's a town recreation improvement, or we got some stuff from Fish and Wildlife before, which helped do, we got a $75,000, could we get $500,000
Sure.
in grants?
Sure.
Is that possible? My guess is, with some good grant writing, maybe.
Yeah, I agree with all of that, but I also want to make sure we take a look at not just the capital costs of this thing, but the operating costs. We have to, we have to do that. And what sources that's going to come from. As long as that's fine. Mark.
Because I've got other board members here, and I feel like I'm taking up too much.
Let Mark finish.
Say something real quick. We have it's a difficult situation because Bob's right that the one thing you don't look at when you look in the black and white numbers that come in each year, you don't look at the money that comes into the town from the people coming to visit. And I've heard 3 million was the figure I heard. If it's 4.5 million, whatever, that's a substantial amount of money in the off season, which is really important to keeping this a viable town year round, and that's essential. and because that's really important. On the same thing, we do have a situation where a lot of people are living on the edge right now, and they can't afford any additional costs. You know, I think the trick is here, there's nobody that doesn't want this.
Right.
What we need to do is find a way to afford it, to raise the funds without going to the public, especially a lot of those people don't ski and go, why am I paying more and more for this? And they don't necessarily understand that by supporting it, it supports their whole town. But their particular financial situation could be intense. So we need to find a way to fund it. And then what Bob is right, the really thing, we're living right on the edge right now of affordability in good years. If we have a bad year, then just the cost of upkeep and supporting it could get tough. You know? So I don't think it's an unsurmountable problem, but we have to be creative on how to deal with it.
Absolutely.
Because I think it's something everybody wants, but it's going to be tricky to get there.
Thanks, Mark. Taylor?
Yeah, I just want
Then I'll ask
to,
the
before
board.
we move too far away, if we quickly touch on, again, on the holistic concept of this. I really think it's important that we're approaching this with fresh eyes and an open mind. I think that, you know, the concerns that have been raised by us at various levels in terms of the future thinking about operational costs can't be overstated. But I think this is just, you know, it's too important of an opportunity to not ask these tough questions and turn over every rock to see if there's a possibility. There's no reason not to do that, and I think it's important to do it from an open-minded perspective.
Does any other member of the board? Yeah, Caroline?
Yeah.
Please, Caroline, grab one of these if you don't mind.
I just want to thank you all, first of all, for what you do, because it's a tremendous amount of work to be a selectman in this town, in any town, so thank you for your good work. I'm going to put my Ragged Mountain fundraising hat on, because we've been raising money for, what, 14 years or something crazy like that? 10 years feels like about 20.
For a long time, forever.
And, you know, we, as a foundation, have a responsibility to our donors as well. And we've raised a lot of money for Sarah's Room. We have sold this concept, and we have sold this building, and we have, in good faith, gotten donors to contribute to it. So I think we walk a very fine line as the foundation board. I totally agree with everything that's being said here. I agree that we need to make sure this is affordable. We need to keep this town equal, and I hear everything loud and clear. But what we do need is an aligned voice here, because we need to make sure our donors understand that we are being responsible with the money they've given us.
Yep.
And we've kind of stepped back in talking with our donors, because we really want to get a general consensus with the select board and make sure we know where we're going. But we do owe our donors, sooner than later, some kind of communication that lets them know that we are moving forward, or we are doing what we're going to do. And I just want to throw that out there.
Perfect statement.
That's really
Thank you,
helpful.
Carol.
Thank
Caroline,
you.
hold that mic just in case anybody else on the board wants to have a chat. 1 second, Anita. Anybody else on the board, members that wanted to chat or say something just as poignant as you just stated? Nobody else? I'll go to Anita. Oh, I'm sorry. Anita was up first, Mike, so.
Thank you, Bob. I am the chair of the Energy Committee, and I appreciate what Mark has said so far to represent the concerns of the Energy Committee. And what Bob says about operational costs. So we have been sweating bullets on this committee about how to offset the energy footprint of this town, which is extremely high, the Snow Bowl representing over half of it. So with a new, I want to compliment you on this downscaled lodge, which I think is very nice, especially as compared with the previous plans. So I do really appreciate the rethinking of that. However, I have great concerns just that you're not really even throwing a bone to the energy with regard to solar on the roof. And I must have the wrong perspective here about snow being an insulator, because I know it is, but so little during our winters, relatively speaking. It's certainly an awesome black heat collector, which the air conditioning is going to have to offset when they're in there in the summer, unless you've got some pretty great plans regarding that. So the Energy Committee is really concerned about energy use at the Snow Bowl and how to offset it, and we'd really like to see you put real care and concern about how you're going to offset the energy footprint of the new building, the increased energy footprint of the snowball. And to say that we don't know what's going to happen in the future is a little bit putting the head in the sand with regard to true science and data understanding. So we'd appreciate a more realistic approach to that. Thank you.
I think you need it to Mr. Scaling.
I'm Michael Scaling. I'm a volunteer. One thing we haven't talked about, and I think there's a big upside opportunity, is increased revenue from the Snow Bowl. And my focus has been on selling ski tickets and getting more people here. And when I look at last year, there was a good increase. But when I look at the days when I skied on weekends, there were a lot of weekends that the weather just got really cold. You didn't hit your maximum. And I just think there's some opportunity, and maybe it averages out, but on two things. One, if we had a year with good weekends, the snow has been great. And if you can make the snow as a base, that skiing last year stayed great all year long. And by having a base, and part of it's a public awareness that you can ski on when the woods are brown and the snow is wonderful on the trails. So some of it's kind of getting people to understand that. But the other point is there are a lot of people I've met who love to come here and who are ready and willing to come here, and some will spend the weekend here. So there's a big possible upside on the revenue that if you had a magical year with good conditions where the snow was white at home and you knew it was going to be white in the woods, you're going to get a lot more people. So, thank you.
Yeah.
Is it on now?
No, there's a button. Press the button and it turned green.
Turns green. I think Dennis says something too.
Okay.
Dennis?
I just want to say a couple things. Wanted to emphasize a couple things that Bob brought up, Bob Gordon.
Oh, I forgot that.
Yeah, I've looked at the finances over the many years, and yes, we've been fortunate that we've had profitable years. I looked at other ski areas, and there isn't a ski area in the country that regularly makes a profit unless they include lodging,
Right.
restaurants,
Right.
and shops.
Right.
And the way we look at it, we exclude that. And I recognize that the taxpayers don't get the benefit of that necessarily. They get the benefit that the town is open all year round, which is important to everybody. I mean, you get to go to restaurants in the wintertime because we have a snow bowl. Otherwise, we'd be like Bar Harbor and it's all closed up in the wintertime. So no question in my mind that the snow bowl is an essential feature of the identity of the town and maintaining it. That said, taxes are an issue. And I think there are some opportunities for us to improve the profitability of the Snow Bowl through promotions and so forth. I agree with Anita that we do have to make sure that the operating costs of maintaining these things don't sink us. And we should take a fresh look at that. My background is geophysics and engineering projects. I've spent my life developing large projects. And I have to say that there isn't one project that I've ever been involved in that finished on time and on budget. Some of them finish on time, some finish on budget, most do neither. If you plan it right, what you get at the end you can use. If you assume that the money and the time are going to be adequate and just proceed ahead, you will get neither. You will run out of money and you won't have anything that you can use. So planning is essential that we do this right. And as far as climate change is concerned, I agree with Bob. You don't know what's going to happen where. All you know is it's going to be different. And depending on how the solar vortex splits and so forth, we could wind up with tremendous snow or no snow. And if you average over 10 years, even with the $200,000 we ran in the hole one year and the $80,000 we ran in the hole the previous year, The average cost to the town of operating the snowball was $5,000 a year. And if we hadn't screwed up the initial start on the redevelopment, we'd have been $5,000 to the good over a 10-year average. So it's really important to look at the long term, both in operating costs and the capital costs.
Thank you, Dennis. Anybody else that I missed hands?
I just want to add on the impact, and this is a thing, I don't think we know what it's going to be yet, but I would be a betting man on this one that it's going to have a real impact to the use of the snow bowl and revenues and all of that, which is the Round the Mountain Trail. And I just want to do a shout out because it's not costing the town a penny, it's not costing the Snow Bowl a penny.
Right.
And, that's a $4.5 million project that is going to drive users to the area. There, some of them will go cross-country skiing, some of them will go snowshoeing, some of them will go hiking. And it's also, there's a whole year-round thing that that's phase 4, right? The revenue from mountain biking or what have you. And there's actually a master plan developed for that, but we're not there yet. We know we're not there. But I think the impact of the Round the Mountain Trail on the use of the facility and increased revenue will be real. And I think that the need for the larger lodge will be felt from that as well. And it's going to come fast because that trail is going to be done next year. And if you think it's tight in there now, Allison, get ready because you're going to have, your peas all over the place and your French fries.
I love standing out in the snow waiting to get to the line for food.
Yeah.
Somebody had their Peter. Grab one, Peter. Sorry about that.
I came to this effort a little later than most of the board members, but I do remember that there was a study done initially in terms of the planning for the whole project, and a key part of that was the lodge. In order to really make sure that the total experience of the skiers is positive, we need a much improved lodge. We need this lodge. I mean, it's going to start, I go out there and ski, and I will bypass the A-frame. I put my boots on in the parking lot.
Yeah.
And I do my best not to go in the lodge, and I know a lot of people like that.
I agree.
We get a proper lodge, something that really provides the space that we need, not only for skiers, but for the mountain bikers and for other venues and types of things like that. It's not icing on the cake. It's a key and integral part of the total project.
Thank you.
For
Thank you,
parents
Peter.
just sitting and waiting.
Yeah, so we've gone an hour and 15 minutes now. I think I want to summarize. And first of all, these discussions are meant to be open and frank, and this is no way intended to, underscore anything. We're in supportive, I can think in general of what the Ragged Mountain's done has been nothing but tremendous, by the way, Bob. All the things, the Round the Mountain Trail, I can't wait till that's finished.
That's
That's
gonna
a
be
wonderful,
Yeah.
wonderful toy. Sorry, it is.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely wonderful.
It's a gem. It's a real addition.
It really is. I can't say enough. So I don't want anybody in the public to think that we're just laying out the trail going moving forward. And it sounds like what I've heard is we do need to open this up for discussion, again, with the public and get that input again. That's very important, I think, because it has been 5 years. But I can't believe it's that long. It's been 5 years.
That's right.
Time goes by, we're having fun. One. Two, we need to, and practically on our side, and we're happy to help, by the way, to identify the entire financial model of building, including maintenance. Thirdly, reinforce the economic model. That's also important because I agree with that. We don't want to ignore that. That's important information for the public. Four, I got to say that I'm getting a little frustrated with a town and a state that says it's environmentally sensitive when it's not. Every major project I've seen that's come to the table in this town, most recently, in my opinion, is fallen short, and we need to reinforce that we're not falling short with this project. And that means we need to revisit some of the things you already talked about, Peter, about the interest in the sustainability materials, the energy conservation, the energy production. Those things have to be at least discussed. So there's an energy component. It's a wonderful design. It's what a great thing to have for the town to make this more Oh, really attractive area. I get all that. That said, with the financial stuff, we can have more substantive discussions about what I preached a little bit on in terms of our financial responsibility to the taxpayers of Camden.
Sure. Sounds
Makes
good.
sense?
Yeah, no, I think our hope was really just to get together with the select board.
Yep.
To make sure we are aligned on the vision, right, the bigger picture, because there's a gazillion details that need to be worked out on this project.
Yeah.
And, but I think the big thing is, are we still committed to creating a four-season recreation area? Do people understand all the benefits of it, not just, because it's easy to look at, is it just break even? When you think of it as a park facility, it's not about breaking even.
The economics you're
It's
talking
not about economics, it's about providing year-round recreation.
That's
For
economics.
the community. Yeah, and just having our kids, doing good stuff and being healthy. That's the other thing, which is, I saw a study yesterday about 7 hours of screen time. And, we haven't even talked about that, right? Which is kids aren't getting outside, and when you go out there, kids
True.
are outside.
True,
And
true,
what's
true.
the value of that? So anyway, I think there's a whole bunch of things, but if we can agree that, hey, we're still committed to a four-season recreation area, we're still committed to doing a lodge, whatever that looks like, and then we need to do these other pieces, which is figure out the funding, figure out the sustainability, figure out all of that. And some of those will be big things. Wind power, I'm all for it. If we can figure out some creative ways of doing a lot of those things. Nobody's saying don't. And so I think there's a big commitment there as long as we can afford it and be real, and I just.
You're saying commitments with qualifications.
No, I'm being realistic, Bob, and I know you are too, which is, we're all trying to be realistic, which is, I'd love a fancy house, but I know, I bring it down to my, I think we all do, right? Our
Absolutely.
checkbook. And
Right on.
I would like,
Right on.
all these things.
Right.
But realistically, we can't. But there are alternatives. Instead of a black roof, put a white roof on it.
Yep.
Reflect the heat. Simple things sometimes add up when you do 100 of them.
They do.
And that doesn't mean you can't have solar and you can't do all those things. But I think we're in violent agreement around the big picture goals, which is four seasons, sustainable, make it work, space that works for everybody, all of that. So that's why we wanted to be here. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Or Bob, I would just like to know what the Ragged Mountain Board sees as a next step from their perspective. Question.
Yeah, well, I think the Ragged Mountain Board needs to, have the town come to us a little bit, to put it on you a little bit. We're happy to help, but which is, if we can get aligned on some of these things, the design, for instance, and just the commitment to, hey, we need to go raise this amount of money, because the foundation, we're not going to build it. The town owns this project. It's not the foundation's project. Let's be real clear about that. So I think if we can get aligned on next steps, budget, I think you've got to figure out the budget. And I think what we're looking for is, hey, here's a design and here's how much money we need to raise. That would be great.
All right, I think the first step in that regard is for the Ragged Mountain then to get us all the material they have in terms of construction documents, construction estimates, and then we have to figure out a way to get the rest of the elements on the table, including operating and maintenance, et cetera, list of, and from there, we can develop a list of design questions from, whether it be with our energy committee, with our other groups, we can get some input for that and start working on that.
That'd be great. And we're happy to be involved, but we just can't, we're not going to go start raising money again until we know we've got a plan.
You don't even know how much it is yet, so that's a little soon.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Any other questions, comments, or otherwise, Mr. Dennis, again?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that in the original plan for the redevelopment, there was no margin for contingency. And my experience with large projects, the fellow that trained me says if you've done it 100 times before, you need 20% margin because something's going to happen that you don't expect.
In this market, Dennis, I might challenge the 20%.
And if you've done it several times before, but not a lot of times, you need more margin. And if you've never done it before, you need 50% to 75%. So my point is that as we go forward with comparing the budget with our expectations, that we build in an adequate amount of margin so that we don't wind up with a lodge that's run out of money, but we're not ready to use it yet.
Thank you, sir. Anything other than, oops, Ms. Anita, one little tiny comment here. I can tell by your fingers being close together.
I just wanted to ask if the Ragged Mountain Foundation is looking at some other ways of incorporating the participation, especially financial, of regional players, because it is a regional asset. We are benefiting a rather large region, and I know that we're looking at the economics in terms of them coming in and spending money at the Snow Bowl, but is there any way that you're willing to look at some other way that the region, the local towns, et cetera, could participate in?
We would welcome it and love it. I think the reality is that that's a town issue, not a foundation issue, Anita. We raise funds from all over the state and outside of the state for this project, actually. So, a lot of these donors don't live in Camden. Some of our biggest donors don't live in Camden, just so you know. As far as the, other than the $2 million the town gave, that a large percentage of that money was raised from other towns in the community, and then smaller amounts of funds were raised even outside of the state. It's really important for people to know that. So that's one of the things the foundation does do, is we have spread the costs. If you're talking about getting Rockport and, like the school system, I would say go for it, and I would say to the select board to do that. And I think we would welcome that, right? But that gets complicated, I know, because then everybody wants discounted tickets and that, go for it. We'd welcome it.
Well, good response. Just last thing is we get that information to us. We're going to have to, I was thinking we have to take a careful look, because we've also got a town staff that's hellishly busy. And so we're going to have to look at when and how things are going to be done, and we'll have to have some comments with you all and your board, just to let that know, because we don't have people sitting on their butts waiting for work to do in the town. So I have to make that in fairness to Audra and company. Yes, sir.
I just have one quick question, sorry. Chris O'Rourke.
Here you go.
I'm a regular user of the Snow Bowl, as Beth knows, and grew up here. And I would urge you guys, as you're going forward this next chapter, to revisit creating a committee that is solely for the Snow Bowl, not making it just bring in some of these shareholders, the stakeholders who want to be involved, who want to, and have a really good idea, so that it's not sort of, well, who's making the decision? Is it is it Parks and Rec? Is it Select Board? Let's really be proactive about creating a committee that can support the staff going forward. And there's a lot of people who would happily be more involved if you ask.
Thank you. With that, I will propose you all go on to your day and have your lunch. And
thank you.
And thank you so much, seriously, for all you come. It's great to have this input for a workshop. It helps the select board and town both very, very, very much. And thank you, Bob.
Thank you. Thank you very much.